Oh. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Medyadramitam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I will return in a moment.
We're starting on number 19 today.
Number 19 in chapter 13, Field and Knower of the Field. Can you help us out, please, Manal?
इति क्षेत्रं तथा ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं चोक्तं समस्तः मद्भक्त इतद्विज्ञाय मद्भावयोपपद्यते. Thus the field, as well as the knowledge and the knowable, have been briefly stated. Knowing this, my devotee enters into my being.
Yes. So, what here Krishna is summing up is what we need to be aware of. So, first, Koham, who am I? Sakshi, I am the witness. This is the knower. And what is the field? The knowable. The entire world of objects, emotions, thoughts, the body, the mind, the intellect, and this chitchaya, the shadow self, the perceiver, feeler, thinker entity. All of that is the field. That too, in the end, is Brahman. It's consciousness appearing as the world of name and form. Just like when I dream, the people, places, things, and conditions in my dream are nothing but my mind appearing as all that. So this is what Krishna says we need to know. Oh. Next verse.
Prakritim Purusham Cheva Vidyanadi Ubhavapi Vikar Vikaramascha Gunamscheva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavana. Know you that matter, Prakriti, and spirit, Purusha, are both beginningless, and know you also that all modifications and qualities are born of Prakriti.
Yes. So the words here that he's using, Purusha and Prakriti, are borrowed from Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy is inherently dualistic, spirit as opposed to matter. And in fact, the great commentators on Sankhya say the Purusha is an individual, a little lump of spirit. But Gita uses the language of the Sankhya's in a non-dual, in a Vedantic sense. So Purusha here means consciousness itself, what we call Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without qualities. Prakriti is the inert stuff out of which all this world is made, including energy, prana, raimcha, as we've been learning in Prashnopanishad. And it is essentially jada, inert. What do we mean by that? I know objects, bodies. I know feelings. I know thoughts. One feeling doesn't know another feeling. One thought doesn't know another thought. And we have to understand that just because it moves and is energized, that doesn't mean that it's sentient. It can be intelligent without being sentient. So an amoeba knows how to divide, but that doesn't mean it's a sentient being. See, consciousness is sentience itself. So know that this entire phenomenal world is made up of the stuff of mind. This becomes easy to understand again if we go to the dream state. I like to say, you are the God of your dream. And a microcosm of Maya takes place. So first, you go to sleep, the non apprehension of yourself is the waker. Then you project the dream and you have a dream body with a dream ego, and you see the dream world outside, dream thoughts and feelings inside. But upon awakening, you see that whole experience was imagination that occurred in the mind. And if you visualize a horse and then dream you're riding a horse, there's a similarity and a difference. Similarity is in your mind's eye, if you visualize a horse, you know it's just imagination. Upon awakening, you know the horse of your dream is also just imagination. But when I'm the waker and I have a fantasy, I know it's not real. But to the dreamer, when he sees the dream horse, he thinks it's real. So also, when you and I are under the influence of spiritual ignorance, I do not know that I am Brahman. Instead, I attribute to the self the qualities of the not self. I think I'm the body, or the body plus the sum of body. And I think the phenomenal world is separate from me. It's other, Dvaita too, and inherently joy-giving and misery-producing. That's the fruit of spiritual ignorance. And this whole Prakriti is comprised of the gunas. There are dimensions of it that are tamasic, dull, inert, like a clod of dirt, like a rock. There are elements of it that are rajasic, that are filled with motion. Sometimes we combine the tamas and the rajas, like the water rushing down the stream, very active, but also has the quality of inertness. And then we have dimensions of the phenomenal world where there's some element of sattva, where there's some consciousness, where there's some sentience happening. I was looking at a YouTube video and I can't remember which dinosaur it was. Great big huge dinosaur. I said it had a brain the size of a walnut. I'm not sure how much sentience was there. On the other hand, we look at whales, elephants. Sometimes I think they have dimensions of spiritual understanding that far surpass humanity. Who's to say? But we have the play of these three gunas through Prakriti, Rajas, Tamas, Sattva. Next verse.
कार्यकरण कर्तत्वे हेतुः प्रकृति रुच्यते पुरुषः सुख दुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते. In the production of the effect and the cause, Prakriti is said to be the cause. In the experience of pleasure and pain, Purusha is said to be the cause.
So, in the production of the first part, read that part again.
In the production of the effect and the cause, Prakriti is said to be the cause.
So, what is the cause of all the objects? It is the stuff of mind, simple Prakriti itself. What it's all made of. What is the cause of all the objects in your dream? The stuff of your mind. And the second half of the verse.
In the experience of pleasure and pain, Purusha is said to be the cause.
So, in the mind states of happiness, suffering, here it's a little subtle. I would interpret this to mean it is the awareness of that becomes causative. Everything, in a sense, comes out of consciousness. Now, again, we have to understand this word Purusha by context. If we want to think of Purusha here being another name for Jiva, we can say the cause of suffering and pleasure is the jivas, the individualities, the mind's reaction to events in the world. I think we're safer to just always think of the self as the unattached witness of everything. If we must see cause in the self, we go back to the mantra that we chant at the end of class, Purnamada. Purnam Adaha. That is full, meaning Nirguna Brahman, consciousness. Purnam Idam. All this is full. And then how did it get here? Purnat Purnam Udachyate. From the fullness of that, the fullness of this has issued forth, has proceeded forth, has come forward like an imagination. Oh. So in that sense, consciousness is causative. But understand, in the end, consciousness never really undergoes a change. The scriptures will use terms like pratibimba. A bimba is a mirror, a pratibimba is the reflection in a mirror. So, is the image in the mirror? Does it proceed from the mirror? Is it caused by the mirror? Language begins to fail us. It's simply the nature of the mirror to reflect. Has the mirror undergone any change? No. So even though Purusha is the cause of everything, it never undergoes a change. Why is this important? You're safe. Nothing's going to harm you. And nobody dies. Now, maybe a very vivid and horrible experience, just like a nightmare. But which is more real, the pleasant dream or the nightmare? Neither. Oh, our imagination. And nothing is really caused. Again, if I dream that I'm out horseback riding, what happens to the horse when I wake up? Gone. Because it wasn't me. Back in the 9th chapter, Krishna has said, I am not in them, they are in me. Actually, they are not even me. Hold my divine Maya support and hold. All right, next verse.
Purusha prakristho hi prakriti jaganu gunana karanam gunas sangyasya sadasadyo nijam nijanmasu. The Purusha, seated in Prakriti, experiences the qualities born of Prakriti. Attachment to the qualities is the cause of his birth in good and evil wombs.
So again, the Vedanta thunders the doctrine of ajati. The Purusha is never really born. It's the subtle body that goes from womb to womb. And if we're in the state of ignorance, in the subtle intellect, I'm attributing to the self the qualities of the not self. Let's parse that beginning again. Read the first idea again for me, please.
The Purusha, seated in Prakriti, experiences the qualities born of Prakriti.
So the self is the ultimate knower of all sense perceptions, all feelings, all thoughts that are tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. Though itself is never touched by it. To whom did this feeling occur? To me, Koham, who am I? To who did this sense perception occur? To me, Koham, who am I? To whom did this flow of thought occur? To me, Koham, who am I? Always keep bringing your attention back. Again, he said, you are the knower of the field in every field. And the next idea in that verse?
Attachment to the qualities is the cause of his birth in good and evil worlds.
So let's be a little bit more technical about this. The attachment occurs in the mind. So when we are in the state of spiritual ignorance, the first thing that arises is Jiva Bhavana. I think I'm a person. And that's always a feeling of being incomplete and insubstantial. With it comes a goal, the phenomenal world. This is what the Buddhists call dependent origination. They both arise together. And I'm convinced I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. The third element, kartavya, the element of struggle, obligatory action. All of that arises, and the attachment occurs to the mind. The whole process of the subtle body. Let's review what the subtle body is. The 5 organs of action, the 5 organs of knowledge, the product, the mind, egoism, the intellect, the chitta, the memory function, and ultimately even the vasanas. All of that is your subtle body. It functions through the physical body for your 70, 80, 90 years. And then when the udana, we talked about that on Saturday morning, the one of the panchavayu, you push the ejection button, out you go. And that lump of clay is left there on the bed. But the question I ask here, what incarnates and who incarnates? Let's approach it this way. Do you incarnate into a dream? It sure feels like it. I dreamt I was at this restaurant. An old friend of mine who's actually passed away. And we'd ordered steak of all things. I don't think I've had a steak in decades. And somehow I'd gotten sauce in my beard. He was trying to get me to get the sauce out of my beard. Weird dream. And we were in the Castro neighborhood where I had lived decades and decades ago. Very weird dream. But it felt like I was Jim in that body, in the restaurant, with my friend Jeff, having dinner, and I woke up. Was I in the dream, or was the dream in me? Vedanta thunders is this thing called lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. We can remember some of us, but certainly in this life, experience after experience after experience. You are not really ever touched by it. Self does not incarnate. You are ever free. It's not that I was a bound creature and now I'm liberated. Both bondage and liberation occurred in the mind. Bondage is nothing more than a deeply rooted conviction that I'm bound. Moksha, liberation, there's no other liberation. And the deeply rooted conviction based in direct experience that I never was bound, that I am Brahman. And neither state affects the self. Which is ever free. All right, next idea in this verse. Here we get
That's it. We got it.
Okay. Any thoughts on this? This is why it's very important. In the beginning, Krishna will say, if you can't see who you are, by all means, identify as a yogi, a seeker after liberation. Shankara will say, you want to be a mumukshu, a seeker after liberation. But that is a temporary identification. What we want to do is subsume, sublimate other identities. I'm son, I'm daughter, I'm father, I'm brother, I'm sister, I run this business, I have this partner, etc. Subsume them all into the yogi or the mumukshu. But then at a certain level, the teaching shifts. Don't try to be an enlightened person. Know that you are Brahman. A big difference. The moment of realization, the Shisha does not say, oh, I know Brahman now. Touch my feet. He says, Aham Brahmasmi. I am. I didn't become it. I didn't achieve it. I didn't attain it. And I don't get a gold star. What do they know? I am unborn, changeless. I just had a mind state. Thought I was a person. Next verse.
Upadrashtanumanta ch Upadrashtanumanta ch Bharata Bhokta Maheshwaraha Paramatmeti Chapyukto Dehe Smin Purusha Paraha. The Supreme Purusha in this body is also called the spectator, the permitter, the supporter, the enjoyer, the great Lord, and the Supreme Self.
So, these are various words that point to the infinite. They do not define. Let's take them one by one and see why these are terms our poet Vyasa uses. The first one, the spectator.
The spectator.
Yes. So when you go to, let's say, an athletic event, you're in the stands, you are not playing ball down on the field. You're in the stands watching. Swamiji always used to remind us, I go nowhere, I do nothing. The world passes in front of me. I'm the spectator, the witness of it all. Next idea.
The permitter.
Yes. All of this occurs because of me. And physics is getting very close to this, where at the quantum level, the solidity of matter seems to be dependent on it being observed. I find that mind-boggling. It's so close to the Vedanta. When it's not being observed, there's just the possibility of it being. So consciousness is that which reifies Prakriti, makes it appear solid. And you and I get an experience of this all the time. All you have to do is just gnaw on a problem like you're gnawing on a bone. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the opposite is true. My worries wither and die from lack of attention when I turn my mind to the end. Next idea.
The supporter.
So consciousness is the substratum of everything. Just like all the objects, emotions, and thoughts in your dream have your mind as the ground, as the support. Next idea.
The enjoyer.
Yes, or here the word bhokta, seen from its technical meaning, means not just enjoying, but experiencing. So in yoga, we can enjoy pleasant things, we can enjoy unpleasant things, we can enjoy neutral things, meaning I experience them. So I again am the knower of the field in all fields. Next idea.
The great Lord and the Supreme Self.
Yes. By the great Lord. What is that that's in charge of everything? Again, hearkening back to what we've been learning Saturday mornings in the Upanishad class. In the first question, Pippalada talked about Prajapati, the creator. There is a God, a personal God, a creator God is as real as your body, as real as your ego. If you are at a place in your meditation when all of that is seen to be illusion, then the personal God disappears. But there is an intelligence that's the Lord of this universe. as Ishvara Bhav, as lordship. And this is what so many mystic scientists have found. I love stories about how Einstein, he would just look at the heavens and he would get these intuitions and then work out the mathematics later. It was like the same way the rishis heard the Shruti, and they go, ooh, it isn't that he's actually hearing voices. It's just that this direct perception. But it's so organized. It's so beautiful. And the deeper we study it scientifically, the more magnificence we find. It's amazing. You're an engineer. Have you found that to be true? The more you delve into the laws of nature, the order is just magnificent. You know? Yes.
Yes.
So the Lord of everything, and what was the last idea? The great self?
The Supreme Self.
The Supreme Self. So there's not a bunch of little Purushas running around. Self and me and self and you are the same. One Paramatma functioning every piece of equipment. Next idea.
That's it.
Okay, next verse.
Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gune saha swartha vartamanopi na sabhuyo bhijayate. He who thus knows the Purusha and Prakriti together with the qualities, in whatsoever condition he may be, he's not born again.
So once you know that the nature, the natural world has its laws, things do not exist, they come into existence, they go out of existence, and then the energy and matter that made it up makes something else. Conservation of matter and energy going on all the time according to law. We have physical laws. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second. The laws of gravity, the laws of electromagnetism, the laws of chemical combination. Why is one element inert and another one very, very reactive? Then we have metaphysical laws, the laws of karma. The law of sankalpa. What's the law of karma? Every action produces a reaction. You drop a stone into a pond, the ripples go out, they hit the edge, they come back. Every action that you do at the physical level produces an effect. They come back much, much later. If you steal, you will be stolen from. Likewise, if you act with generosity, the universe is generous to you. Now, these chains of causation are incredibly subtle. What is the law of sankalpa? Any wish, will, thought, desire, intention. It's very hard to translate sankalpa. consistently maintained that's not conflicted or contradicted will tend towards rosification. Thoughts become things. We have a vision of something before we bring it into manifestation. Basic metaphysical laws. All of this is prakriti. And Purusha, the spirit, stands as the untouched, uninvolved witness. Birthless, changeless, qualityless, vast and empty like the sky, yet always perceived as I. Fundamental ground of being of everything. So this is Shiva ever wedded to his Shakti. Purusha ever wedded to Prakriti. This is the symbolism of the Shiva Lingam, the lingam in the yoni. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
ध्यानेनात्मनि पश्यन्ति आत्मानमात्मना अन्ये सांख्येन योगेन कर्मयोगेन चापरे. Some by meditation behold the self in the self by the self. Others by the yoga of knowledge, by Sankhya Yoga, and others by Karma Yoga.
So what number is this?
25.
25. Okay, so now he's talking a bit about the different methods by which this profound direct experience, this knowledge of Paroksha Jnana can be gained. The first, this is the highest. When we understand the self is not something you see, hear, taste, touch, or smell, emote, or think, yet it is not unknown. The self is self-evident, self-shining. So those great mystics, those Mahatmas, who not only are full knowers of the Supreme, but have retired into the Supreme. There's no words, no thoughts for that. Then there are those, the second one here, Sankhya.
Yes, by the yoga of knowledge.
The yoga of knowledge. What is the yoga of knowledge? Jnana yoga is a way of thinking that gets us beyond our thinking. What it is. And the pramana is the kind of thinking that's set forward in the scriptures. Chief among them is discrimination between the self and the not self. And then a thorough analysis of the phenomenal world as we compare it to the dream world until we are absolutely rationally convinced this world is like a dream. This is the methodology that Gaudapada uses in his great Karika on the Mandukya Upanishad. And then the third methodology here is through intelligent action. All that was laid out in chapters 3, 4, and 5. Act, O Arjuna. How should I do it? According to your inherent latent proclivities. What can restraint do? But if you're going to do it in the yajna spirit, this selflessness. Dedicate your activities as sacrifice. Serve the society. Then renouncing our attachment to the fruits of action and our identification with the sense of agency. This is the method of karma yoga. Incredibly powerful, especially for those of us who are grahastas, we're householders. We're not monks and nuns. We're not living in caves in the Himalayas. You got a job, you got a family. Very, very important to thoroughly understand how to practice karma yoga. Is that all the pieces of this one?
Mm-hmm.
All right, next verse.
Anye त्येव मजाननन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चातिर्नत्येव मृत्युः श्रुतिपरायणः. Others also, not knowing this, worship. Having heard of it from others, they too cross beyond death, if they would regard what they have heard as their supreme refuge.
Yes. So, upasana, which is worship. And why do we worship? Because we've heard this truth from others, either from a priest or a parent, a guru, from our own reading of scripture. What is upasana? When I think or feel like I'm a person, by all means, turn your will and your life over to the care of God as you understand God. And it can be the nameless one that inhabits eternity, or it can be a God that you identify with a particular form. Doesn't make any difference. This is called Ishvara Pranidhana, trustful, surrender to God. And if you have a form of God that you love, by all means, kindle the flame of love in your heart. In the Jewish tradition, the first commandment, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, soul, mind, and strength. So that's the upasana. Read the verse for me again in English.
Others also, not knowing this, worship, having heard of it from others. They too cross beyond death, if they would regard what they have heard as their supreme refuge.
So the idea is you love God until you disappear. God alone remains, subsuming every part of the ego into this love of the divine. That person also crosses beyond. Next verse.
Yavat sanjayate kinchit sattvam sthavara rajnamam kshetra kshetragya sanyogat tatvidhi bharatash bharatash rishabha. Wherever any being is born, the unmoving or the moving, know you, O best of the Bharatas, that it is from the union between the field and the knower of the field.
So whether it be something moving like lions and tigers and bears, or unmoving like a tree, it is the union between Prakriti and Purusha. If it is a being, if it has bhava, it is this union. And we can take it to its deepest understanding. Everything that exists in the universe is ultimately has consciousness as its substrate, and its namarup, its form and name is Prakriti. Everything. There's nothing outside of that divine union. Any thoughts? Next verse.
Samam sarveshu bhuteshu tishtanam parmeshwaram vinashyat pavinashyantam ya pashyati sa pashyati. He sees who sees the Supreme Lord existing equally in all beings, the unperishing within the perishing.
So now Lord Krishna says, how do I come to experience this? Yesterday in class, one of my students was saying, I hear this, I believe it, that everything is God, everything is consciousness, but I don't experience it. How do I come to experience it? Really good question. And this is a tough one. This is a kind of tapas few of us are willing to undertake, because it means absolute, radical, perpetual renunciation. Sanyasoham Sanyasoham. Sanyasoham. Um, um, I renounce the whole world. Wherever I have attachment, give it up, give it up. Doesn't mean go away from it. In Yoga Vasishta, we have the very famous story of Chudala. So she's a queen married to this dude, Sikid Bhaja. And they both, after a long time ruling the country, decide to take up spiritual practice. Her mind is much more subtle than his. So she attains self-realization rather quickly. He gives up everything, but misses the point. So he says to her, wifey, you rule the country. I'm going off to the forest and act in a way of being a renunciate. So he goes off to the forest and he has a little hut and he does ritual, he does puja for 12 years. And gets some juice from it, but no real peace. So she, knowing his mind's getting subtle, it's time, and also knowing he can't learn from a woman, let alone his wife, she acquires siddhis. This is a literary device here. She changes herself into a young Brahmin, goes to teach him. And he said, why can't I find peace yet? He still is identified, still attached to the world. So you have to give up everything. So I've given up everything. I walked away from my kingdom. Kumbha, the young Brahmin, says, not enough. It's all right. I'll give up my hut. I'll just wander around the forest. And Kumbha says, not enough. All right. I'll give up all my ritual objects and I'll be sky clad. I'll run around stark naked, covered with ash. And Kumbha says, not enough. So what else is there? Okay. I'm going to give up the body itself. I'm going to go jump off a cliff. Kumbha says, not. He says, what else is there for me to give up? Kumbha says, you must give up the mind. You must quit believing your thoughts. You cannot think a real thought. No thought construct that your mind presents is real. This is the way to give up attachment to parent, spouse, children, job, home, creed, caste, all of it. All has to go. Finally attains peace. So this is what we must do. Now the process that Sikit Bhajja goes through is the process that you and I usually have to go through. We start giving up our attachments to external things. We may or may not need to walk away from them. This can be the value of an ashram. The downside is after you've done your time in the ashram, what happens? You go back to the world. And if you still have attachment and identification, all of a sudden the world is encroaching on you again. You find you cannot find the peace that you seek by getting rid of objects. Always loved the story in Nisargadatta Maharaj as he was deeply internalizing the teaching from his guru. Mind you, he was a householder. He had a wife, kids, he had his biddy shop, apartment in Mumbai. So he left it all and went up to the Himalayas. Then after a while, he came back. Just like Sikit Bhajja, giving up your ritual objects is nothing to do. Traipsing off to the Himalayas won't do it. If that's your karma, yes. What is it that we have to give up? The mind itself. And then the practice. All this comes about like a dream. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. The phenomenal world is illusory. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. All this is verily consciousness alone. The names and forms are Mithya, illusory. Tatya, false. It's all God. We learn to lean into our aversions. I love the story of St. Francis of Assisi. What a terrible fear and aversion of leprosy. His moment of realization was when he saw it, leaned into it, and went up to the leper, hugged him, and kissed him on the mouth. Moved right into his greatest fear. For him, the world dropped away. Seeing the self in and through the objects. Keys Vairagya. A desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses. Identification with any form of self. All right, one more.
Samam pashyahi sarvatra samvasthitham mishvaram nahin satyatmanam manatmanam tato yati param gatim. Indeed, He who sees the same Lord everywhere equally dwelling destroys not the self by the self. Therefore, he goes to the highest goal.
Yes. So this sama pasha, pashyati, does he say?
Pashyahi.
Yes. So the root, it's an irregular root, the way I was taught it. Drish pashyati. Some people say it's two different roots, but we get darshan and things like that, things, visions, seen. But pashyati is the verb to see, it's the root to see. So the person who has sama pashyati, who sees everywhere the same and sees everything as Krishna. This is the practice. So practically speaking, we tune up the mind, keeping the mind intensely introverted, letting all the sensory data just pass through. Shama Dama Uparati. Keeping the mind intensely introverted. Now, when Swamiji could see that you could tune up, find this Parama Maunam, this supreme quiet, gather you in. You close. If you could tune up to him, then he would show you the awakened mind. Come sit in his glory. From here, the world is just Namarupa. Waters. See the Lord. Okay, we'll end here tonight. What verse are we on for next week?
We finished 29, 30.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.